Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. I hope you're all enjoying a nice festive break, because in today's video I'm going to be looking at a continuation from the last week's video in terms of giving you my general perspective about the market of where Bitcoin's heading in the next few days and weeks, as well as what's currently happening. If I get some time, I'll have a look at some of the altcoins as well. But also, finally, at the end, I'm going to try and do an amazing little insight in the Wisdom Bites section of how to reprogram your mind for success. Now, at the end of the year, everyone is always normally looking forward and hoping to have an amazing year ahead. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you a few real Wisdom Bite gems from my own experiences of what I did about 25 years ago to reprogram my mind to getting me to achieve totally unexpected success that I've had over the last 25 years. So if all that sounds interesting, then without further ado, put everything away, get your notepads out, get your cup of tea, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, and let's get cracking. Before I begin, the usual disclaimer, please remember, I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not anyone's financial advisor, so please do your wider research before making any investment decisions. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start off with the weekly chart, and I'll take you back to the COVID-19 situation here back in March last year, 2020. So after the COVID situation that developed here in March 2020, it seemed to be the trigger point for creating this following channel. And I remember showing you this at the time last year. Certainly I was expecting, when we came up to this top of the channel here, I wasn't expecting this candle to break above this top channel, and I expected one more round to get back down here so we could collect a few more coins before we did this move up here. But once we broke above this channel here, then we came back with this candle to retest that support, which was the old resistance here, of course. And that was really the signal, the sign, the trigger for this move to come. But nobody predicted such a sharp move to the upside. I think it's safe to say that it caught everyone by surprise, and to move from around these prices here, around about the 14,000 to 64,000 in such a short space of time by April was really quite unprecedented. And as I mentioned in last week's video, this was such a strong rise that it didn't seem sustainable to carry on further up. And now looking back, the rounding off pattern that we got here from such a rise was a clue that we are in for a sharp fall, which is exactly what we've had over the last 6 to 8 months. So since this topping off that we got here, what we've done is to create an incredibly strong base down here. We've had a couple of rallies and created other mini bases here, and at the moment currently we're setting up another base over here. So overall, if you look at the past 8 to 10 months, this is what we call a very strong base in terms of a market structure to give it the foundation for a massive move to the upside, which is what I'm expecting. As we've been seeing over the last many months now, every time we get a pullback, it's created a lot of panic in the market. But as I've been mentioning over the same period of time, that there isn't really any need to panic, simply because when you look at the actual structure, what we've done is to create these higher lows here, as well as the higher highs over here. So from a market structure point of view, we are in an uptrend on a longer term basis. And the critical levels that we needed to watch out, as I've mentioned in my last week's video, was this level here at around about the $40,000 mark. That this level here, the 40,000 mark, or 39,600, around these levels here, at the bottom of this wick, that's basically the line in the sand for me. And as long as we don't break that, then the market structure is well intact. In fact, from a classical charting point of view, this is the line in the sand here, which is at 28,800-ish, around here. Because then this market here, this bull market, would be negated by the fall below these levels here. And a fall below the 40,000 mark would really cause a huge amount of concern for me, that's where we would be heading. So for me, these were the two levels that I gave in the last few months. And as long as we created these higher highs and the higher lows, then we were certainly not in a bear market. So what are the current levels that we need to look out for and to actually focus on? If we zoom in here, we can see quite clearly that there is a very strong support and resistance line around about the $52,000 mark here. There. What we need to do initially, the first port of call, is to move above the $52 and the $53 mark here. And this pullback that we've just had here in the last few weeks, which culminated in this support at 42,000, but in the last few days, what we've seen is a rally back up towards the $52,000 mark. In fact, it stopped at around about 51,900. So what we need to do for the continuation of this bull market is to get firstly above the $52,000 mark, use it as support, and that will be the trigger for it to go to the $58,000, $59,000 mark, because that's where the next important level is, as we can see from the tops of these candles here. So what I would say currently is that please don't get fooled by this rally that we've had up to the 52, 53,000, because whether we like it or not, it's still part of this pullback, because in any pullback, we will get a sucker's rally before moving further down. So what we have to do is make sure we don't come back down here again. And the way to negate that would be to get above the 52 and the $53,000 mark level. So how will we know that this is a sucker's rally? Well, if we fall back below the $45,000 mark here, which is where we were finding a lot of support, if we fall below the $45,000 mark, then 40,000 is definitely on the cards, unfortunately. What I suspect could possibly happen is that we could get rejected at the $52,000 mark, and we've got rejected at 51,900 at the moment. So it may well be that we're coming back down to retest the $45,000 mark before we make another challenge to the 52 mark, and then on our way to the 58, 59. Because once we get above the 52, 53, then the 58, 59 is definitely on. And I would expect a strong rejection and a pullback at the 58, $59,000 mark. So the way I see it now is that we should see a move up to the 52, 53, and we may have already had this move now. But the question is, are we going to have a pullback from here, or are we going to continue much higher from here? And if we do have a pullback, will we create a higher low just like these? In which case, this is still a continuation of the bull market. And if that was the case, then we will be on our way to the 58, 59. But should we break the 52, 53 in the next few days, then expect a pullback at these levels at 58, 59. So if we do get to the 58, 59, then I suspect that we'll come back to use the 52, 53 as a support before making an attempt to break the all-time high at $69,000 mark. Also, I've been showing you for many months now this bump and run pattern that we've had here. And I drew this line last week that this is still intact, and that usually with a bump and run pattern, what we get is a lead-in phase here before we have the bump phase, and then it's followed by the run phase here. So what we've got is the classic pattern developing where we got rejected at this point to make a cup and handle pattern here. We've broken through the neckline, and we've now come back to use it as support. So this is all within the realms of a bull market and a very bullish pattern that's been developing here. And it's one of the reasons why I don't expect this diagonal support trend line to break. And if it does break, then we have to rejig our ideas and see where we get to at that point. But until then, this looks an amazing pattern for a bullish continuation. And if we have a look at the weekly moving averages, this is a simple moving averages on the weekly chart. And I showed you last week that unfortunately we had fallen below this white line, which is the 50-week simple moving average. And whenever we've done that in the past, just like here, we made a very strong recovery back above it. And I said last week that as long as we do that, then we're okay and well to go. But if we did actually close another week, then we may end up spending many, many weeks down in this region before we broke back above it again. So the fact that we've actually this week found bullish momentum to get well above it again tells you that the momentum in the market is still intact, and that at these levels down here at the $45,000 mark, there is a lot of buying that comes in as soon as the price falls at those levels. And I've kept the 200 weekly moving average on the chart just to show you that when we actually do have eventually a blow off top, then this line here, the 200, is going to prove your best friend, because you'll be waiting for the price to come back all the way down to this level here, wherever this is going to be after the bull market blow off top. And at the end of the next bear market, you're going to find, as I've shown you many times before, that this is where the price always comes back and finds support. And this gives you the opportunity to buy at very low levels in the future. So keep your eye on this. We must always prepare for what's going to happen in the future. The other moving average that I showed you last week is that we needed to get back above there was the 200 daily moving average. So switching to the daily chart from the weekly chart, we can see that in the last few days, we've managed to get above the 200 daily moving average, which is the green line here. And we've gone well above it here now. So again, that bodes well, but look where the 50 daily moving average is. And that's currently at around about 54,000. So you're going to find that we will find some resistance at this level here as we're moving up. And maybe by the time we get there, this line will be at around the $52,000, $53,000 mark. And hence that resistance point that I showed you around here. And finally, on the moving averages, back to the weekly chart, and this is the 21 weekly exponential moving average. This is the prize we're waiting for in the short term, i.e. to get back very quickly above this yellow line here. And currently that's at $51,500 mark. We need to close above there to give us a little bit more of a bounce to the upside. And as you can see, we've come very, very close. We've hit it and bounced back down, unfortunately. So the danger is that if we remain below this line here, below the 21 weekly exponential moving average, we could end up with this scenario here, where we spend many, many weeks before we finally get up above the moving average. Once we get above this exponential moving average, then we're good to go for the $58 and the $59 mark here. I remember last week that everybody was panicking around these levels of the 45,000 and expecting it to break well below. And I mentioned to you that the hash ribbons are always a very good support line, and that if we have a look at over the last 11 years of the Bitcoin cycles, we can see that whenever we have a weekly close of a buy signal on the hash ribbons, we very rarely ever close below that line going forward in the future. And the last time we had this buy signal on the weekly chart was at this time, and I've shown you this many times in the past. We hit it around about the $43,000 mark, and we haven't yet closed below that in any meaningful way. So that provides a very good support. So we have to hail the Lord of the indicators once again. The hash ribbons have come to our rescue. As we've seen with the previous buy signals that we've had, the price hasn't come back below these buy signals that we've had in the past. So certainly I'm expecting this buy signal here, which was at around about the $43,000 mark, to hold as support for the market to go much higher. So let's see what happens. If it doesn't hold support, then we'll have to change our narrative and respond accordingly. But until then, all these blue buy signals down here have been a very good reassurance of a good level of support for the Bitcoin price. Quick look at the VPVR on the right hand side. As you can see, this basically shows you where most of the buying and the selling has been done in this region here. And as you can see, there's very strong support at these levels here, at the $39,000, $40,000 mark, which is the lines that we've drawn in the past. So as long as we hold this, we're fine. And the next line, as you can see, the strong level of support is here in this region. So that's why these two levels are absolutely critical. So as we can see, there isn't much support below this at all before this level here at around about the $19,000, $20,000 mark here. Certainly, I'm not expecting that to happen. Okay, if we have a look at the Dow Jones Index, I've been showing you this for many weeks now, and this spans all the way back to the last century. And as I've been showing you, that we're at the top of this trend line here. But as we've seen before, we can spend many, many months at these levels at the tops. So it's not imminent that we're going to fall off, as long as we keep within and above certain key levels. And the levels I've been showing you is that this is the blue line that we've got here, the long-term trend line. We've gone above it and we have tested it on numerous occasions here and just recently this week again, but we've had a strong bounce up. And the levels to look out for is this red zone here, which is at around about the 33,800 mark. If we get below this line here, then that would raise a lot of concerns for me. But the red line in the sand for me would be this zone here, the second red line. And that is at 33,000 for the Dow Jones. So I keep this as a buffer to give me an alert before this happens. Because once we get to this level, I would be looking at this to ensure that if we're going to be making our way down to these levels at 33,000, then I would be looking very critically at my portfolio to make a decision. So keep a lookout for these zones here at the 33,800 level down to $33,000 mark. And if we have a look at the dollar, as I mentioned in the last few weeks, that we have this trend line and we were coming up to that trend line. And I mentioned in the last few weeks that we're due for a correction at these levels here. So it's obviously finding it difficult to get above this line here. I'm not expecting it to go much above this. And I am expecting a pullback on the dollar here, which would give a very good trigger for Bitcoin to go much higher. So let's keep an eye on this. And if we zoom in, some very important developments on the candle here. As you can see, there is a gravestone doji developing here. And if it closes, and this gravestone doji, as we saw here, is usually a very good sign for the market to pull back down. It doesn't always work, of course, but the majority of cases, when you get a long wick at the top with a little body at the bottom, which is regarded as a gravestone doji, it really triggers off some bearish pressure. So I would be expecting in the next few weeks to have this effect with the dollar. And that gives me a lot of hope for Bitcoin, because as we know, there is an inverse relationship between the dollar and Bitcoin and all the assets. And finally on the charts, I want to have a look at the junk bond market, which I've been showing you in the last few weeks. And when we came to this level here, I said that this is a bit concerning, but I would really be very much concerned when we break this level here at the 83.7 mark here. But since we came back down to these levels, we've had a very strong bounce to the upside. And as we know, and I've mentioned many times, is that the junk bond market is the one that actually is a prerequisite to a fall or a crash in the Dow Jones market. Because these people who are holding the junk bonds, they're usually on edge and much more sensitive to any big fall to come. And so they tend to sell off very quickly, and that tends to become the trigger for the Dow Jones Index to sell off. So before you see the Dow Jones sell off, you'll see this market. So keep your eye on this. But as you can see, we've had a very good, healthy bounce back up again on the junk bond market. So it doesn't seem from the charts that there is any imminent danger of the market falling in any meaningful way. Just to make a few observations which might help people, I do notice that a lot of people do hold a very large part of their funds as altcoins. Now, at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do. I can only tell you what my own view and perspective is. I have never really held anything more than about 4 or 5% of my total portfolio in altcoins. And that's because of my mindset in the crypto market is to actually run with the winners and to run with the ones that I'm sure will actually do well. So for me, I tend to keep most of my holdings in Bitcoin related assets like the Bitcoin miners. But I do have splatterings of a few altcoins. Because you see, with limited funds, you want to play the strongest altcoins, not the weakest ones, or the ones that have had their big rise and are now showing a great deal of weakness. What I would say, for whatever it's worth in terms of value to you, and you have to do your wider research. Like I say, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But my observation in this market is that when a chart, whether it be altcoins or any chart, starts to look weak, then with limited funds, you want to really ride on the strongest looking charts, the ones that are looking bullish, especially when we've had a big pullback, but the chart on the strongest altcoins will still look bullish. So if we have a look at this one here, which is Kusama, I think I got a request for this one in the last few weeks. If we zoom in with these moving averages here, and look at this chart, obviously it's done extremely well with the rise here. And since around about this time here where we topped out around May, and what we've done is created a lower high from this point, but now recently we made a higher high here. So that was obviously bullish. However, recently it seems to be in a downtrend. And if we just focus on this part here, we can see that we made a channel, a rising wedge, but this is obviously a bearish pattern, and that's exactly what's happened here. We've broken down from that pattern and had quite a major correction here of around about 50% from the top over here down to here at around about 250, 55. The worrying sign for this chart, for me anyway, is that if you put the three main exponential moving averages here, the green one here is the 8 exponential moving average, the yellow is the 21, and the white one is the 34. And these are all Fibonacci numbers, as I've mentioned many times in the past videos, that these are very important moving averages. So once you fall on a weekly chart below this, this is showing a lot of weakness in the market. So I personally wouldn't start buying this. Yes, you can dollar cost average into these prices with the hope that it goes up. But the question is, would you prefer to dollar cost average into a weak chart here, or would you look at something that's already quite strong and therefore you have a higher probability that a bullish looking chart would take you much higher quicker than something that's showing a huge amount of weakness down here? So everybody has a decision to make, but certainly I wouldn't be making a play on this until it got above one of these averages here. And the 34 exponential moving average is at 317. So I wouldn't really look at this until it got above that and above this dotted green line I've got down here, which is strong support down here, which is just recently broken with this candle here. So by all accounts, it's broken all the major levels here. It's broken the rising wedge here. It's gone below the averages and it's now gone below the support line here. So by all accounts, it's looking a very weak chart. And similarly, if you look at NEO, this was a very good chart from the start of the bull market. And I remember recommending this at these levels here when we broke this trend line at around about the $24, $25 mark. And we had this massive run up to these levels here at around about the 140, 150 level. But since then, unfortunately, it's had a bit of a downturn and we've got lower highs created as well as lower lows here. So there is a lot of weakness that's come into the market here with NEO. It doesn't mean that it's going to continue to go down, because as you can see, there's quite a strong support line here, which is exactly where it's coming back to, which is around about the $24, $25 mark, and currently it's just bounced off there at around about 29. So again, if you want to dollar cost average, this would be a great point to dollar cost average in, as long as we can go back up again. But at the moment, so if you're already not invested in here and you're waiting to get invested, then I would wait to get above one of these exponential moving averages before even dollar cost averaging in. And if you're already there, then you might be better to just wait. And if Bitcoin goes to where we expect Bitcoin to go in the next few months, towards the $200,000, $300,000 mark, then certainly this will push it back up again. So in the end, you will make quite a lot of money with NEO, but currently it's showing a lot of signs of weakness. And if you compare those charts with some very strong looking altcoins, then I would refer you to one of these, which is Solana. And as you can see, when we broke this neckline here, we had a massive rise to the upside. We created another bit of support here. And then when we broke this neckline, we had another run to the upside. And currently, we're creating another base over here. And once we break this neckline here, which is what we're moving up towards here, then we will get another of these bounces over here. And if you look at the averages, you can see that it's well above the 34 exponential moving average, as well as it's bounced off the 21 exponential moving average, about to close above the 8 exponential moving averages. So this chart is looking very bullish, and it seems like it wants to move much, much higher. So if I had a choice between NEO and Kusama and Solana, certainly this one is the one I would be going on now, because the charts are moving always in a fast way and you have to be in a position to be able to swap and change. You can't be loyal to weak charts. Another strong looking chart, you may have come across this. I don't know much about their projects or anything like that. I'm just a chart reader, so I just look at the charts and I can tell you whether it's looking strong or weak or indifferent. Once again, you can see quite clearly that we've gone well above the 34 exponential moving average and the 21, and look where we've gone now here, well above and closing above the 8 exponential moving average. So this looks to me that we're going to be attempting to clear this neckline here. So if I was waiting to get into this chart, I'd wait until we closed above this neckline, which is around about 127. And that would be a sure sign that we're going to much higher levels. So until then, we've got just rejected at this neckline, and we may have a pullback to these levels here, to these averages. So I would just be patient and wait until either we break above this neckline or we find some support at some of these averages here. And the bullish one of all of them is this one here. I'm not sure if you've come across this, MATIC. If we just zoom in, you can see we've had a powerful rise up to these levels like all the altcoins. But what we've done is we've created a magnificent structure here where we've created higher highs along the way, and we've now just created another high as well as higher lows here. So incredibly bullish chart. The magic of this one is that we've just about to close above this neckline here. So it's now created an all-time high currently. So this to me, and obviously this is not financial advice, you do what you need to do. So this to me looks like it's on the launch pad to go to much higher prices. It may well be we go above it and come back and use this as a support line at the 2.7, 2.8 level before we go. But certainly keep an eye on this. If you're looking for a bullish chart, which is ready and about to take off, this one looks very much on the cards here, and that's MATIC. Okay, so I hope that helps. So time's running out, so I want to move on quickly to the wisdom bite, and I really want to give you this information because it's very important for personal development purposes. So if you want to work on yourself, if you want to work on your mindset, if you want to improve and progress, then this section is the one that's really going to help you to take a more holistic approach to life. Because it's all very well making lots of money on Bitcoin, but if you haven't got the mindset to be able to keep hold of the money that we make here and then to utilize it for our long-term benefit, then it's pointless making money in Bitcoin like a lottery winner who tend to be much worse off after a number of years than they were before their lottery win. So we don't want to be in that position, and hence this wisdom bite section is there to develop our wider perspective and to work on ourselves in many different ways that will help us to actually to deal with the amount of rewards that we get once we have the blow off top, which we expect in the next 3 to 6 months or so. So at the end of each year, I always notice two types of people. There are those who are in the majority, 90, 95%, whatever the figure is. And these are the people who are busy enjoying the festive break, escaping from a generally unhappy, unsuccessful, mundane life, full of problems, full of difficulties, full of issues, etc., etc. And then you have this very small minority of people who I notice who utilize this time to reflect on what they have achieved during this year, and they look forward to writing their goals for the next 12 months as part and parcel of their vision of success over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years or so. Now, I can assure you that these people are a very small minority, and you may not even come across these because they're so few. But let me tell you something, that these are the people who are the most successful people in our society today. And if you ask the first group of people, i.e. the 95, 97%, and they will tell you that that smaller group of very successful people, they got there by either having a leg up or other people helping them, or purely by luck. But let me tell you a startling fact that nearly 90% of all the billionaires in this world actually started with nothing. And it was through planning and organizing and setting personal goals and looking at the world in a different mindset and with sheer hard work. That's how they made it to where they are today. However, before you can even start setting goals and planning, you have to actually program your mind for success. So today I'm going to be giving you an insight into how I programmed my mind around about 25 years ago, and I continue to do so even today. So I'm hoping that the information I give you now will provide some value to you and give you some valuable ideas and help you to take that overall holistic approach to life. Now, the baseline idea is that you become what you think about most of the time. Please remember that all your previous thoughts and experiences in life have led to a complex program into your mental computer, and that has created the mindset that you have today, which guides you every minute of the day, i.e., it becomes your default setting. So the basic principle here is that if you want to change the results in your outer world, then you have to reprogram your inner world by changing your mental program, i.e., your mindset. And there are many ways to do it. And I can just give you a few pointers of how I try to do it. And I got most of this information from people who I used to read 25 years ago, people like Brian Tracy, people like Jim Rohn, people like Jack Canfield. And the first thing I learned was to set a clear goal of where I want to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, as well as what you want to do and what you want to achieve sometime in the future. Example, on the financial side, you have to say to yourself that I earn an X amount of money by this particular year. So what you're doing is you're actually giving a command to yourself in the present tense and making it definite, i.e. that I earn, not I want to earn or I hope to earn, but you actually say to yourself, I earn an X amount by this particular year. So how it works, and I've experienced this myself, is that your subconscious mind then accepts that command and then goes to work for you to bring that command into your life. And that works 24 hours a day. It's looking for ways and means and ideas to give you so that you can take action on them. So basically, it's a positive statement about a desired future event, but you always say it in the present tense as though it was already true. Example, you don't want to say, I want to lose this amount of weight. Instead, you bring it in the present tense and say, I weigh this amount of pounds in the present tense. The second way to reprogram your mind is to visualize and create a mental picture of your goal as if it was already a reality. And remember, all changes in your life will always begin with a change in your mental picture. Example, if you want to buy a beautiful house, which is what I wanted to do going back to 1995 to 2000, that era when I started all this, what I used to do was go and view £1 million houses on open days, especially if they were in the area that I wanted to live. And within a few years, I ended up buying a house of a similar type in the area that I wanted to live. So I firmly believe that this visualizing and picturing absolutely works. And the process is really to feed your mind with pictures of all the rooms and styles and layouts of what your perfect house would look like. And I remember going through these magazines like Better Homes and Gardens and many other magazines and go through real estate sections of newspapers, etc., to flood my mind of my perfect home. The third way of actually reprogramming your mind is that you need to act as if you had already achieved the goals that you desire. And since we're here about Bitcoin and we want to become financially even better off than we are, then the way to act as if you've already achieved your goals and desires with Bitcoin, i.e., just imagine that we've had a blow off top and now you've got a big pot of money which you didn't have before, and now you're financially successful to whatever degree you want to be. You have to ask yourself, how would I dress? So you act as if you have achieved those goals by asking yourself, how would I dress if I already had that pot of money? How would I organize my life? How would I treat other people having made this pot of money? What would be my body language? So when I was working in the pharmaceutical industry back in the 1990s and the 2000s, I used to think that I was already a wealthy and successful person, which is what I desired to be at that time. And I just looked at my job in the way that it was merely as a courtesy to my existing manager or the company that I was working for in order to keep myself busy during the day. And I can tell you that when you start thinking like that, so no matter what job you're doing now, just imagine that you're already successful. you're already a very wealthy person, and that you're doing this job as a short-term measure, as a courtesy to the company that you're working for. And you'll see that your outlook, your body language, the words that you use, the tone that you use, and how you address people and how you groom and dress yourself, it will all come to a completely different way of thinking. And the principle is that poor people have poor behaviors. So if you behave like a poor person, then you will always remain poor, unfortunately. Example, if you dress poorly or your car looks a mess and your house is a disaster zone, then that's how poor people live. And the problem with that is that you're surrounding yourself with images of being poor. And there's a saying that you cannot change your outer world until you change your inner world. And finally, the fourth area of how to reprogram your mind is actually to talk to yourself in a positive way. That inner dialogue, that inner voice that you have. When you're on your own and you're talking to yourself, then talk to yourself about the person you want to be and the things you want to have. So example, when I saw a new nice car, although in the pharmaceutical industry we always got very nice cars, but whenever I saw a better car, I used to say to myself, I drive a car like that. And when I saw nice clothes, I would say, that's the kind of clothes I wear. And when I saw beautiful homes, I'd say, well, I live in a house like that, etc., etc. So just keep talking to yourself about the things you want to have and the person you want to be. And each time you do that, you are reprogramming your mindset, and your subconscious mind is accepting your new commands and then working 24 hours a day to bring your commands into reality and into your life. And all I would say is just give it a go and give it a try. I hope, like me, you'll be amazed at the difference it will make to your life. And ask yourself a question. What have you got to lose? Okay, so on that note, we'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed the technical analysis and the wisdom bite for today. If you did, then please click the like button and subscribe if you're new. One of my goals for this year was to hit 5,000 subscribers. And as you can see, I've got to 4.73 thousand subscribers here. So all I would say is thank you very much indeed to all those people who have subscribed and have been part of my journey over the last year or so. I'm so close, and if you want to help me reach that 5,000 milestone, then that would make me very happy, and the YouTube algorithms will then recommend my videos to an even wider audience. And if you have any questions, comments or suggestions, then please leave them in the comments below. Until the next time, I wish you all a wonderful, happy and very profitable new year ahead. So until then, take care, stay safe, bye for now.